Greetings and bienvenue, Midnight Crew. Thank you for returning to this broadcast. And welcome to new viewers joining us for the first time. If you like a video, then feel free to subscribe.
Some viewers may find the following video disturbing. Viewer discretion is advised.
Non-paranormal scary story thread. Share spooky stories that don't involve ghosts or demons or the like. I'll begin with a story of my own. It's lame and can be easily topped, so please do share. B15. Taking a walk with a friend. We're on a main road without a sidewalk, so we obviously stay close to the side of the road. We're idiots walking against the traffic, not with it. Man in a truck starts slowing down and then abruptly pulls over next to us. WTF. He looks at us for a moment and then drives off. Friend and I walked home shaking. And that was the day I thought I was going to get Chris Chand.
I was always taught to walk against traffic. You walk against it and bike with it. I think the whole point is that if a car is a little too close to the side of the road where you're walking, you can get the hell out of Dodge. If you're walking with it, you can't do shit because you won't see it coming. Moral of the story: when walking on the road, walk against traffic.
Get a promotion at work. There's a catch. I have to move to this small town in the middle of nowhere. Why not? It's a raise and the first promotion of my life. Get kinda lonely though, supervising these rednecks. One guy seems kinda cool though. We hang out on smoke breaks. Everybody avoids him. I can't figure out why. He's funny and fun to hang out with. He's off sick one day and someone comes to me, tells me I have to stop hanging around with him. WTF is the problem? They say he killed his best friend and blamed someone else for it. Oh, please. These rednecks love a good rumor. Decide to ignore it like the 20 other dumbass stories I've heard since moving there. A couple days later, we're on break. Says, "Hey Anon, I gotta talk to you about something." What's this about then? Says if we're gonna be friends, there's something I should know. Says he doesn't feel emotions like normal people. Studies how people socialize and got good at it, but totally doesn't understand people's feelings. Oh, you're a sociopath. Okay, dude. Tell him not to worry about it. It's cool. I was young and stupid and lonely in Nowheresville. What can I say? Reassured, he then starts talking about his friends. Says he used to have 2 close friends. Says he hit one in the back of the head with a rock and pushed him off the cliff. Why? I just wanted to see what it would feel like. Really matter of fact. Says he blamed his other friend and was more convincing in court, so he only spent 8 months behind bars. He could be telling me about what he had for dinner last night. All of this in his usual tone. There is no punchline. He starts talking about something from work. I'm able to independently confirm it later. I almost invited that guy over to my place, told him we couldn't hang out anymore because I was a supervisor, and the boss said we had to stay separate from everyone. He gets fired for getting in a fistfight with someone at work.
This is a good one. Got anything else about the town and its people?
Actually, yeah, come to think of it. At least 50% of the town was chronic. Everybody smoked pot on occasion without exception, but at least half did so daily. Massive industry out there. This was long before serious talks about legalizing it. No greenhouses in town, assumed it was grown in the surrounding area. The forest around the town went on for miles. Pick any direction, and you have to drive a minimum of 3 hours to get to a city. People lived out there in the woods in tiny communities, maybe 2 or 3 houses, probably growing pot to make a living. You'd meet people from those families sometimes. Always dramatically low IQ, always stubborn as mules, always kinda ugly, but not necessarily birth defects. They always acted like they could do what they wanted because who's gonna find them out in the woods? Cops live in cities. This meant even the townspeople, holy shit I use that term, were a bit nervous about leaving the city at night without a rifle, went out to a supposedly haunted cemetery one night on a walk because insanely bored, so why not? No ghosts, but definite noise in the trees. Not an animal. We were being watched. I was more worried that it was someone alive than a ghost. Because who the hell walks through the woods in pitch black of night without a flashlight and watches us? Bug out and never go back.
B15. Friends and I are out running around at 3 a.m. running all over his neighborhood, ringing doorbells, being little shits, etc. Running down the street back to his house. Man is standing on the sidewalk. I nearly ran into him. Guy tells us to get lost. Look over into the yard of the house we were in front of. 4 or 5 other guys are carrying furniture to a small trailer in the driveway. My friend knows the people who own the house. They are out of town. So yeah, we watched a house get robbed. We told his dad and he called the cops, but that was nearly an hour later since it took us a while to get back to the house.
This one's not super spooky, but it was still unsettling. Live out in the sticks. Hear a truck pull up in the driveway. Peek through the curtain. It's a typical unmarked white work pickup. Doorbell rings. Go with my dad to the door. Old redneck guy is standing on the porch. Dirty, smells like cigarettes. Wearing an apron covered in bloodstains. Nope.jpg. I'm selling meat. Would you like to come out and see it? It's in the back of my truck. What kind of meat? All kinds. Sorry, not interested. Goodbye. .flv. Also, local girl goes missing. Huge search. Nothing in months. Wake up to a cop at the door. He asks us to search our property and clear our ditch for the missing girl's clothes, phone, and possibly remains. Our entire section of the county is asked to comb our properties. Clear the ditch. Nothing. Search the yard. Nothing. Property is cut in half by huge power lines on electric company property. Decide to search under the lines. Find a pile of wadded up tarps. Definitely weren't there before. The patch was recently mowed and visible. Human-shaped lump in tarp. This is it, oh shit. .jpg. Delicately lift tarp. Pile of 2x4s. I seriously thought I was going to discover a corpse, even though there was no smell. Corpse found outside an abandoned house, a few lots down. It's creepy to know that the killer drove past my home with a corpse while I was sleeping, and how long she rotted nearby.
I've posted this here once before, guess it's time again. Be me, 15 years old at the time, walking around with 2 friends at like 9:30 at night. Go to this park that was closed to the public at sundown. We sat around and talked about random shit for a while, trying to scare each other, etc. Some shitty old car and a super beat-up truck pull into the park insanely fast, right up next to the swings we were sitting on. We all decide that this is probably a drug deal or some shit and we should GTFO. So we weren't witnesses or whatever. We start walking away from the cars towards another exit to the park. Hey, get the fuck back here! We start running like hell through this about 600 by 600 foot field leading into a baseball field. And this field had a small road in it. This was a huge-ass park. Running in full-on autopilot mode, we heard what sounded like a small-caliber pistol popping off behind us. One of the friends said he heard a bullet whiz by him. Anyway, we keep on running and running and running, and hear one of the cars peel out onto the road alongside the park and pull into the road in the field. Feeling like one of my lungs has popped at this point, but kept sprinting anyway. The car drives down the road but doesn't go onto the grass in the field. By this time, we were halfway across the baseball field. Run across the baseball field, still hearing shouting far behind us. We drop down by this fence on the edge of the park, under a big-ass oak tree, and hope for the best. Lay down in silence in the wet grass at about 10 p.m. for literally 2 hours while they searched for use with flashlights around the park. About 12 a.m. they leave. We crawl to the edge of the fence and walk about half a mile back to his house, play video games, and eventually fall asleep. And that's the story of the time I'm pretty sure I almost got kidnapped or something.
My dad had a story from his and my mom's first house. Neighborhood was kinda shady. Dad would often paint before going to bed next to a window. One night painting and he casually looks out the window. There's a face right there staring at him. Dad starts to yell. The guy's like, it's okay. Turns out he wanted money. Dad said hell no. Also after my brother was born, but before I was, they had a crazy neighbor. One night my brother heard a noise outside and checked it out. Saw someone with a saw cutting down a tree completely on our property. Ran to tell Dad. Dad didn't believe him at first, but checked it out. Ran out to see what the hell he was doing. Guy bolts it, runs next door. Dad realizes it's crazy neighbor. Next day he goes over and asks the guy what the hell he was doing. Guy denies he was ever in their lawn with a saw, even though Dad clearly saw him. Would also throw meat over the fence into our backyard where our dog was. Might have been poisoned.
Got any more crazy neighbor stories? My neighbor used to watch our house with binoculars and would call the cops on us for every little thing.
There were some other stories about him, but I can't remember them. I need to ask my dad about them again. My family moved to a house in a much nicer neighborhood by the time I was born. No creepy neighbors, though the house to the right of ours never seemed to have a tenant for longer than 2 years after the first ones left. But it's not creepy. Worst tenant it ever had were some college kids who just played loud music all night and threw beer bottles in our backyard.
My neighbor is batshit insane. Wakes us up with her screaming at like 7 a.m., like bloody murder screaming. Has called the city hall or whatever the shit it is about us twice. First complaining about oil spots on our driveway. The second was about our AC being too loud. City actually sent someone to move our AC like 3 feet further. Obviously doesn't do shit to help. She went ballistic at the guy moving it, yelling at him through her window about how loud it is. It doesn't even bother us, so she either has supersonic hearing or is full of shit. Has actually trimmed her trees to have a better vantage point into our backyard. All of our houses are backed up to a hill, and she stands on her end pretending to water and just watches us through our windows. I have caught her on a few occasions calling my dog to her fence. Luckily, he hates everyone not in my family, so he doesn't go to her. We have literally done nothing to her, and don't even retaliate.
Some people are nuts. When I lived in a house with some friends, the neighbor lady would always spy on us. She never called the cops and would seem nice enough, but she legit had her recliner set up to stare directly into our living room, and according to her son, she didn't have a TV.
Oh man, I have a weird, crazy neighbor story. I was living in a small apartment complex, and my bro lived in the unit beside mine. On the other side of his apartment lived this screwed-up guy. His name was Preston, and he was really skinny and hairy, and he always looked dirty and drunk. One night my bro started banging on my door like, "Hey, I need you over here. Something's wrong." I go over there, and his floor is flooding through the wall. The water was coming from Preston's apartment. We both walk over to Preston's door and ask him if everything's okay. He's nearly deaf, so he acts like he can't understand us. He was obviously extremely drunk, too. We told him that his water leak is ruining my bro's furniture and shit, and he needs to make it stop. All Preston said was, "I'll get to it in the morning. Don't worry." We called the landlord, who called the water company to come turn the water off. The landlord went in and discovered that Preston's toilet was so crammed with toilet paper that his toilet was backing up and flooding everything. Waste everywhere. Don't worry, Preston will get to it in the goddamn morning. Fuck that guy.
Not sure what this was about. Still makes no sense to me, but it's definitely strange. Had a shitbox car that I put up for sale for $500. Honestly, should have just scrapped it. No one's gonna buy this. Willing to take any offer thrown my way. A couple calls me telling me they are on their way to look at it. I'm home alone with my 1-year-old asleep in her crib. Her mother is out. Couple keeps calling saying they can't find the place. Finally show up in a shitty van. They look like 2 dirty hippies, very giddy and smiling a lot. I greet them and small talk. They don't even take a second look at the car, almost as if not even interested in it. Keep small talk. Man asked to use the bathroom. Like an idiot, I say, "Sure," while the man is in the bathroom. I'm standing outside the bathroom in the hallway with his wife, I guess, just talking. She's going on about a lot of new agey talk, saying I have a really good energy about me, thinking about my kid asleep in the next room. I get weirded out and think these fuckers need to leave now. I mentioned how I have to leave soon, so we should wrap this up and get them outside again. They are very polite and kind, but there's just something off about them. The woman keeps telling me to look to the stars or some shit, telling me this car was meant to happen like destiny, yet they haven't shown interest in it. Man pulls out $500, doesn't even negotiate, and hands me the money. One gets in van, other gets in car. I'm just praying it starts and gets them out of here. They keep smiling at me and waving as they drive off. Definitely a weird experience. Not sure if they were crazy, slow, cultists, or just weird. But I can't help but think that whole event could have gone much differently.
My older brother died at a month old due to SIDS. For the sake of convenience, let's call him Steve. Steve's death messed up my parents beyond belief. Parents convinced they wouldn't be able to have a child. Mother suffered much, much worse than father. A year later, I was born. Skip ahead 18 years to 2010. Mother and dad are now separated. Mother gives me the master bedroom. Says there's too many memories attached. Whatever dot flack, start totally renovating the room. Invite some art major friends from school to paint the walls. Apply some kind of paint thinning, I think, stuff to peel walls and give them a clean canvas. As the paint starts peeling, we notice something written underneath the paint. Below the paint, the walls are covered in messages written in dark ink or something. Give me my baby back. I hate you so fucking much. Please kill me, let this end, God. I want to die. Art friends are visibly shocked, start pouring out of my room. Me and my girlfriend start painting over the walls in a solid color. Girlfriend crying her eyes out the entire time. If it adds anything, my mother is a severe manic depressive, bipolar, schizoaffective alcoholic. And to add to that, my older sister has mentioned that Steve's death was due to mother suffocating him while my dad was on a business trip.
Well, no one died, but this was a weird night for me. Be 19. Friend invited me to go camping with him and his family. Drive about 30 miles out of a small island town on a road that is basically just giant rocks. Takes 2 hours to go 30 miles, and I haven't had cell service for 2 hours. Immediately leave the family with a friend to go drinking. Friend tells me there's another campground a 2-mile walk away that apparently has a bunch of parties usually. Decide to go 1 mile into a walk in pitch black here, rustling in tall grass beside a rock path. Probably a deer or raccoon. Rustling continues for about 2 minutes. Decide to stop. Rustling noise stops. Keep walking. Rustling noise continues. Repeat the same test several times with the same results. Sir, you are being hunted.jpg. Lots of mountain lions in this region. Drunk off my ass. Decided to just stop dead and wait. No way I'm outrunning a mountain lion. And I'm told running from big cats makes them instinctively want to eat you. Wait for 20 minutes. No noise whatsoever. Dead quiet. Start walking back. Noises repeat all the way back to the campground. Sitting around outside our tents, we're in a large circular clearing with trees all around that are very tall. See extremely bright object fly overhead. Just as it goes beyond the trees out of sight, see a flash that illuminates most of the sky for a split second with purple light. Still to this day, I have no idea what was following us, or what I saw in the sky, but I assume they're completely unrelated.
This was years ago, so excuse me if I'm not so clear on the details. Be like I don't know. 13, 14. My friends and I from my street always go to a park on the same street. Only a few houses down, so it made it fun to play hide and seek there. We're in Texas. As a result, we had big balls and played hide and seek only after dark. While looking for my friends, I noticed my brother running at me. He was playing with us. He looked scared. What's wrong? There was some old lady walking on the sidewalk near the driveway I was hiding in. She was creepy, murmuring stuff to herself. Eventually, all my friends and I are together figuring out what's going on with her. She's walking down the sidewalk on the other side of the street from the park. She looks somewhat overweight, nightgown, the rest is too dark to identify. She turns at the next intersection and disappears into darkness because of a broken street lamp. I think nothing of it. Minutes later, she's walking back toward us. We all nope out of there and go back home. Next day, I was out and get back home around 1 p.m. Friend from last night comes by minutes after. Hey, Anon, something weird happened to my dad today. What? He was working on our broken front door when he heard something on the other side of the house near the back door. He went to check and there was an old lady there. He froze and almost thought it could have been a ghost. He spoke out to her and she didn't say anything. She walked out of the open back door and was walking up and down in front of our houses. She came by your house and looked through your windows and tried opening your door. My dad called the cops and they came to get her. Turns out she was an old lady with Alzheimer's disease and some other stuff. She was supposed to be watched in her home at night, but whoever was supposed to watch her left her for the night. She was the same lady we saw the night before.
I lead a very boring life, so there's not much, but there was a time I was followed around for a little while. Be me. Walking down the street, alone, going to college. Some old man rides past me by bike. He catcalls, and I ignore him. A few seconds later, I see him riding past me again, in the opposite direction, and turn the first corner. When I get to the corner, I can see him leaning against a wall, out of the bike, as if he was waiting for something. Keep walking. He rides past me again, and enters the next corner. I walk straight past the corner one more time, and he does the same thing, and again in the next corner. I cross the street. It doesn't stop him. He keeps waiting for me to enter a less crowded street. I don't even turn where I should. I just stay in the street that has the most people. I'm looking for some open store that I can get in, but nothing is open in this shit piece of a city. Until 8 or 9, and it's like 6:30. I start getting desperate, since the street ends in a viaduct, and you need to walk under it to get in the other side, and that area is known for being a homeless, drug dealing, and robbery spot. Finally, I found a church and entered it. The man rides straight past it, looking at me inside. I wait a good half an hour before leaving again.
A year ago, staying the summer at home because my sister had a bad breakup with a crazy meth addict, feeling sorta useless as the summer goes on because my sister managed to snag another guy. Then one night as the monsoon season started to pick up, I wake up because dogs start to bark. We lived 30 minutes away from the road behind a few houses, so we are not the closest house to the highway. Whoever is here there has to be a reason. No one is awake, so I decide to check. Before I have a chance to, someone starts jiggling the doorknob. I can hear it turning, slowly, then erratically, then slowly again. Get creeped out. Then the knob jiggling turns to soft knocking. Very strange knocking in that it was 2 knocks in quick succession, then a pause. Get out of bed and walk down the hall to the front door. There's a window near the door, but it's raining, so it's really dark, so I decide to turn on the porch light. Look out the window. It's my dog standing at the door, leaning on it with its paws. It looks at me and I freak out. I run back to my room and got my brother's gun, all the while shouting to everyone to wake up. I grab the gun and my sister and her boyfriend are coming out of their room. Mother is as well. Dad is still asleep. The dog is here, I tell them. The dog is here. Mom is asking what's wrong. Should I call the police? She asks. Knocking again, more aggressive. I saw my dog. Could it be a dog anymore? Knocking. I don't care anymore and aim the gun at the door, hoping to shoot through it. Fire 5 times before I realize the gun has no mag. Rush to the room again and grab a mag. Dad is awake. Everyone stares at me as I try putting the mag into the gun. Taps at the window now. I look up. There's a shadowy figure at the window. Can't see it with lights on. He's holding a stick and I freak out when someone grabs my hand. Another hand grabs me. Soon my parents and sister wrestled the gun from me and held me down. The figure is gone and the pounding stopped. An hour later I calm down. Mother is telling a story about the previous day. Sister is talking and calming down her boyfriend, who stood therein shocked for the most part. Ask where my dog is. Dad answers, outside. Ask who jiggled the doorknob. Everyone looks at me confused. Next morning, muddy prints on the only road to our house with none headed back. My feels when my psychotic break was not completely unwarranted. Still should have taken my meds though.
Be extremely young and just started school. I live in an extremely small town in Alabama. I remember how all the adults were friendly all the time. Mom left for work early every morning, so my older brother would take me to the bus stop around 6:30. One day, my bro was staying at my great-grandma's, so my mom took me up there and I just waited around with 10 other kids of varying ages. Decided about 20 minutes before the bus was scheduled to show that I would just not go to school today. Bus comes and I just start walking around these government apartments that are nearby. Some random dude is driving by and sees me walking. I still had my backpack on. Asks me if I need a ride to school. I just look at him for a second and say, "Yeah, sure." He had one of those 90s dark green Camaros. Anyway, the ride to school was less than 5 minutes. He drops me off at school and I was only an hour late, so no one notified my mom or anything. I could have been brutally murdered. Might have had such a traumatic experience that I'm comatose somewhere and this reality isn't real. When will I wake up? Really though, I'm lucky that guy was pretty chill.
I have a few that happened to family members of mine. I've never experienced anything myself. This happened to my grandmother while in college in the 1940s, in the dorm room with a close roommate. Just relaxing at night, cooling off from the day's classes. Suddenly hear a scraping noise coming from the hallway. Grandma and her roommate shit themselves, shut the door and huddle up. Listen closer. Sounds like someone forcefully scratching the walls. They sit there motionless for what seems like hours. All the while, the scraping gets closer. Eventually, it stops, and they tentatively go to bed. In the morning, they learn that a friend of theirs had fallen and gotten severely hurt in the hallway. She had tried to make noise and make her way to the nearest door to get help, but never made it. The girl died, and my grandmother felt so awed up about being afraid that she never asked how the girl got hurt. She used to use it as a fable, telling me it pays off to face your fears. This one happened to my mom. It's a bit weird, but I'll write it just as she described it. In her bedroom with her cousin. She lived nearby but was staying the night so they could hang out longer. As they're sitting around having fun, the overhead light begins to act strangely. It starts to flicker frantically, which freaks them out, but then it gets worse. The light starts to glow a deep red, and a pitch-black curtain begins to make its way across the ceiling and then down the walls. They go into a panic. Rush for the door to get my grandpa. The door has no handle all of a sudden. They begin to claw and beat at the door. They're screaming at the top of their lungs. Before the blackness reaches them, my grandpa busts in. All at once, things go back to normal. My grandpa comforts them but is left confused for a while until they come to their senses. My brothers and I used to poke fun at my mom over this story, calling it the evil lamp. She and her cousin still swear by it though, as the most evil thing they've ever felt. Last one for now. Another from my mom. Lived on a farm in rural Oregon. House is on a hill with fields and then a thick forest at the top. Clear view all the way up from the kitchen window. Forest can't really be penetrated due to blackberries. Around the age of 7, she's playing near the tree line, digging in the dirt. Someone walks up to her. It's a girl in a red dress. Everything seems normal. They become good friends. Play every day. But when it's time to head inside at night, the girl just stays near the tree line as my mom heads inside. Stays there no matter how long my mom watches from the house. Eventually, my mom feels sorry for her and asks if her friend can come inside. They act confused, but eventually say yes. Mom goes to tell friend, but she's nowhere to be found. Never sees her again. She asked my grandparents about it when she was much older. They didn't know who she was talking about at first, but then remembered. They had said yes, assuming it was an imaginary friend. During that time, they had seen my mom play by herself by the tree line every day, and never saw another girl, especially not in a red dress. Needless to say, this spooked the whole family.
Reverse nope from my family. My cousin is 11, lives in an apartment with few floors with shitty security by South America standards. Wakes up one day hearing screams. His room's window is next to another apartment's. Slowly makes his way out of his room. Parents asleep, and opens the door that leads to the corridor. More screams, now from the lower floor. Closes the door slowly, but my uncle stops him. He's just standing there in his underwear and holding his pistol and a bunch of extra ammo. Go stay with Mum. Lock the door when I leave and don't open it until morning, alright? Cousin nods, does as he's told. A couple minutes later, one shot. Another couple minutes later, another shot. Some time later, another shot. MFW, my uncle is in special ops. A bunch of really stupid criminals decided to raid his entire building during the night and had no idea he lived there. My uncle killed 5 out of 6 and arrested the last one since he didn't have any guns on him and wasn't a threat. The guy shit himself when he realized the shots weren't from his buddies killing the people in the building, but my uncle offing them.
I guess this fits better here than in the other thread. Years ago, when I was young. Go back home after high school. All lights are off. Nobody greets me. Assume nobody is at home again. Older brother must be hanging out again. Mom working late again, I guess. Don't care for anything. Exhausted. I had a shitty day. I decided to go straight to my room and sleep. I turned the lights of my room off. While in bed, I realize nobody is at home. About 15 minutes into my business, I get really uncomfortable. Get the sensation that someone is watching me. Try to ignore it and continue. Can't shake off the sensation. Then I saw a figure standing still at the door of my room, which I forgot to close. Can't make out at the moment what it was because of the darkness. Fell off the bed. On the floor, I can finally make out what it was. It was my aunt. She was standing, immovable, watching me like in Pick related. Aunt? What? From there, she just goes to the kitchen without saying anything and starts making dinner. I'm too embarrassed and still scared to say anything, too. We later eat together but don't talk for the entire night. We also don't make eye contact. When Mom comes home, they greet each other, but quickly goodbyes afterwards. Bark at Mom about not letting me know that Aunt was going to be at home. Didn't notice the note Mom left at the kitchen because I went straight to bed.
My cousin had a sleepover for his 11th birthday. Me and him and 4 of our friends were hanging out in his living room, prank calling people with my uncle. My uncle dialed a number and put it on speakerphone. A guy answered, and my cousin asked the guy if his refrigerator is running. Good one. The guy said he was on his way over to kill us all, and he said he knew our address. Being a smartass, I told him I'll be waiting for him. The guy said, "Be ready, I'm on my way to insert cousin's address here." We all freaked out, including my uncle. We all grabbed knives and shit, trying to act like badasses, even though we all were dropping bricks in our pants. About 10 minutes later, my uncle went upstairs to the bathroom. While my uncle was in the bathroom, the front door started to shake and the handle was jiggling violently. We all stood there with our mouths wide open, literally trying not to cry. The front door started to open, and we all booked it to my cousin's bedroom. We sat in his bedroom in silence, and a few of our friends started to cry. After a couple minutes, we heard someone stomping up the stairs. My cousin's bedroom door swung open, and I threw a Snapple bottle as hard as I could at the door. I drilled my uncle right in the face, and he started gushing blood. I had no idea WTF was going on, but my uncle dropped on the floor laughing his ass off for about 10 minutes straight. Turns out he called his friend in advance and told him what to say when we prank called him. And when he went up to the bathroom, he jumped out the window and started messing with the front door. Not creepy, but my uncle went through a lot to convince a bunch of 12-year-olds that they were about to get murdered.
With friends one day before setting up a party, we walk to a nearby bayou and see organs floating in them. We pull them to land and start poking them with sticks and shit while I'm trying to cut open the stomach with a tin can lid I found. We're all laughing, thinking it's pig organs, thinking someone was trying to hunt for gators when my friend points out something terrible. Guys, look at the lungs. They have black spots on them, like smokers' tar spots. Why would an animal have tar? Shit got real, and we get the fuck out of there scared as fuck. One of my friends tried to call the cops, but we were all underage and trying to throw a party, so we forced him to get drunk and to forget about it. Later on, we find out the organs belong to an old lady that got assaulted and murdered by a group of illegals.
I hope that you enjoyed tonight's broadcast. If you enjoyed tonight's story, then please subscribe to the channel as more Greentext will appear daily. A new broadcast will appear when the clock strikes midnight Central Time.
Remember to check the Odyssey and Rumble pages for separate archives of previous broadcasts.